Hi, my name is Greg Canty, and I'd like to welcome you to the Win Happy podcast. I love chatting to people from all walks of life about their lives and their careers, about the choices they make along the way to pursue their happiness, and what winning actually means to them. I hope you enjoy these conversations as much as I do. Thanks for listening. On today's podcast, I chat with CEO and founder of Stone by Stone Leadership, Therese Phipps. Therese comes with a huge story, from the quiet girl who got in trouble in school because she was too shy to read a piece aloud in front of the class, to the powerhouse who runs her own leadership training organisation today. She has navigated some huge challenges in her life, including recovering from a brain haemorrhage, the death by suicide of the father of her son, and losing a business she had built up with her sister. Therese shares her story, including the Stone by Stone rehabilitation from the life-threatening illness, her suicide awareness work, and training the leaders of today and tomorrow. Let's hear from Therese. Therese Phipps, a huge welcome to the Win Happy podcast. How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm delighted to be here.
So nice to see you again, because we had a lovely chat. I don't know, it was supposed to be a very quick chat, but my God almighty, as soon as we started, I'd say there was no stopping us, only for appointments and everything else. We could still be chatting.
Exactly. It was a great conversation. And so I'm looking forward to continuing on, really, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So while I got to know you a little bit, our job now is to make sure the listeners get to know you today.
Amazing.
So I think there's kind of a very obvious part one and part two to your life. And I think that all began on a beach, if I'm correct.
Yeah, you are correct. The journey began on a beach. But before I stepped onto that beach, I had a brain hemorrhage out of the blue. Didn't know I was healthy up until that point, had no indication that there was anything wrong. It was a Friday evening and I just got this unmerciful pain in my head and very quickly felt very nauseous. What proceeded from that was about a week of misdiagnosis and severe pain. And then it got to ultimately where my left eye started to protrude out of my head, and they started looking a little bit deeper into what was actually going on. So I had a brain bleed, and thankfully, I'm very conscious when I talk about my story as well, Greg. I'm really conscious that there are a lot of people who don't survive a brain hemorrhage. And it can be a catastrophic event in many people's lives as well, where they can be left with long-term damage, particularly physical and mental damage as well. I have been so fortunate to have survived it and to be actually okay. I think that in my situation, the non-negotiable, I guess, for me was that I didn't give myself another alternative than not to recover from it. So obviously, initially, there was physical disabilities and mental disabilities and emotional things as well. For example, like even to read, I loved reading and I still love reading, but to go back to reading, it would take me a long time to get through, like say a paragraph. I would lose concentration really, really quickly. And so there was a lot of rebuilding that I had to do. And so to get to where you're talking about, my real healing journey, I believe, began on my beach. My beach, it's where I owned it, the beach close to where I lived. And what I used to do is every day when I got out of hospital, bearing in mind that the hospital's role was to fix the bleed, and they put in these coils into the aneurysm. And that was it. So when I left, there was no support. There was no follow-up with me. You're good, and which is a great thing, obviously, in terms of the physical side, that the aneurysm had been treated successfully. But on every other level, there was no support. And so I had to figure it out, and I had to figure it out for myself pretty quickly. So I do love the beach, and I'm fortunate to live beside there. And so every day when during my recovery. So like I couldn't walk. I could hardly walk a few steps when I first came out of hospital, for example, and that left eye was shut. It was like closed over. I couldn't open it. And so I'd get a lift to the beach and I would walk a couple of steps on the beach. And when I couldn't walk any further, knowing that I had to come back again, I would pick up a white stone. I don't know why it had to be a white stone. It couldn't be any other colour stone. It had to be a white stone. I had to look for that white stone in amongst all the other stones on the beach. And then I would come back. The next day I'd go back down. If I didn't get any further on the beach, I wouldn't pick up that stone. But when I did get further, I would keep picking up a stone. And stone by stone, day by day, I was recovering. It was these small steps. At first, I didn't really even notice. And then all of a sudden, I remember walking. So the beach is 2 kilometers from my house. And I remember I got to the stage where I was able to walk the 2 kilometers to the beach, walk along the beach, walk back, and then back up home. And I remember one day walking back up home and realizing in that moment going, look how far I've come and what it took. And I really believe it was literally, like I said, it was a non-negotiable for me. I had my reasons to get better, to get stronger. Always my reasons are my 3 kids. I'm not ashamed of saying that they are my motivator in life. And they were relatively young at that time. The youngest being 11 and the eldest being 21. It was that realization when I was walking back up the road going, I never at that time thought I'd ever achieve this. And it was just a moment of, isn't it incredible what we do when we do small things consistently, what we can actually achieve, right? When we have our non-negotiables, when we don't allow the interference of, I can't do this. Oh, poor me. Why me? Right? I did have those moments. Obviously, everybody has those moments when, something of such tragedy happens to them. We're human, right? But I think it was about making sure that I didn't allow those belief systems to trigger me to not doing what I needed to do and not get in the way. And I think also recognizing my achievements and allowing me to accept the achievements for what they were. And that was just walking. That was just being able to get somewhere and get back and just be so grateful of that achievement and recognize what it was that got me there. Because I think a lot of us, I don't know if you agree with this, Greg, but I think a lot of us, we don't actually give ourselves the chance and the moment to look back at. We're so focused on looking into the future. We're so focused on what we don't have. We're so focused on, what we need to achieve, that if we stop to look at what we already have achieved in our lives, and a lot of us can go through such terrible events and experience such tragedy and trauma. But I think it's how we recognize that even in our weakness, even in our depth of despair, that we have this ability to come through it. And most of us, every one of us who are here, has come through everything 100% because we're still here. I would agree with you. I think the second half of my life began on that beach. I differentiate my first period of my life up until the moment of the brain hemorrhage, which actually happens to be, it was the anniversary of my brain surgery was the 4th of July, 12 years ago. And so I always see it as, obviously it's Independence Day, but also it was the moment that I got my independence back as well. So I think it's really significant that happened.
The Therese that had that brain hemorrhage and unlikely recovery from all of that, you were obviously an individual who was equipped to a particular level to take on that challenge.
Yeah.
So who the hell was that Therese? Where was she from? What were you like?
Okay, well, interestingly enough, and a lot of people are a little bit challenged when I tell them that I'm extremely introverted, even though my job requires me to be very outgoing and talk publicly and things like that. But I think the fact that I grew up as a very shy child. I grew up in Sandy Cove. So again, my affiliation to the water and the beach, I think, probably stemmed from there. And I was extremely shy. And I think because of that, the introvertedness is I was able to become very aware of behaviors in others. I'm very aware of recognizing others because I wasn't busy making noise or being, the outgoing kind of person. And I think that now looking back, I think that's probably where it came from. And then I suppose I experienced huge challenges in my life as well, up before the brain hemorrhage, that probably taught me the value of life and true resilience and to cope with certain things. And that was my son, who's now 33. His father died by suicide when our son was 5 years old. And I was really young at the time. But incredibly, through all of that and everything that we had to navigate through that period of time, I think probably, Greg, probably that experience stood to me in terms of resilience and knowing I can get through this. If I can get through something like that, I can get through this. Maybe it was my test run or something, I don't know. But I think for anybody who goes through these sort of traumatic, I'm going to call them a traumatic event, experiences maybe, I think that you get a choice, right? You get a choice to either look at what it was, what it's there to teach you, because the alternative for me was too painful. I couldn't go down the route of becoming a victim of that situation because my son needed me, and I suppose maybe my way of being resilient is always knowing that I have people who need me. And so I suppose in my mind, my mindset is around that. And I think, probably that, to answer your question, I think like it would be going through that time and everything else that we had to do to get through that and what we did together as a family, and even looking at him now and how he's evolved is just quite incredible. But I think that resilience, I think that was the Therese that was learning life, that was, navigating a lot of things to get to a point where she had to reinvent herself. And it was a reinvention, I think. And even for my kids to watch that, they talk about it now to a certain degree, that even the roles that they've gone into in their careers, and they're all three incredible humans. And it's very much around supporting others, connecting with people, and through their various different things. And I think that's how we got through it as well, connecting as family and having great conversations around how we were going to get through. And like everybody else, there was more that was going on at the time as well. But I think that was the choice, before. Nobody's ever asked me that question.
Why were you so shy?
Why? Yeah. Why was I so shy? I don't know. I think probably because wow. You're good. You're good at asking these questions. Okay. Why was I so shy? I don't know. I think probably because, I had two older sisters, and I have a younger brother. So I come the third in my family, I guess. I think my family is quite quiet anyway. We're not loud people. We're not that there's anything wrong with loud people, don't get me wrong. Maybe I didn't want to be the center of attention. Maybe I didn't want to be, I remember being in school, in primary school in Dalkey, and I remember one particular teacher, and I really liked her, but she wanted me to stand up in front of everybody and read out something, and I couldn't do it. And I said no. And, you don't say no to your teacher, right? And I got into so much trouble, and I was put outside the classroom, and I was made stand outside. And I just think about how far we've come today now. We would never do that to somebody. We would help them, we'd support them with what we know now. We wouldn't make them feel ashamed of themselves and criticize somebody for an inability or that shyness or that introvertness. We would support them. And so I find it interesting how that was dealt with then, and how we can support other, like a lot of people are introverted, right? A lot of people have social batteries that diminish quite quickly throughout the day. And I think that's okay. right? I actually think it's okay. I don't think, successful people don't have to be extroverted. They don't have to be the loudest in the room, and we know that a lot of people who are introverted or shy by nature tend to be the ones that just get on with the work. Right. And just get on. And, I know that there are people obviously who are more extroverted and they're just as equally successful. But I just don't think there's a one size fits all. So why was I shy? I actually don't know. There you go. I'm going to think about that now. You're going to have to come. You're going to have to be a part two.
We'll have to do a part two.
We'll have to do a part two.
Yeah. And is that introvert still living inside you big time?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. And I'm okay with it now. I'm okay. I'm 52. I am happy to be the person that I am. And it took me a long time, I think, to get to that point, to be okay with. I think that's the beauty of being in your 50s. I didn't dread being in my 50s. I'm just glad I'm still here. So I think that, yes, I am introverted, but I still do what I do in spite of that. I don't let anything like that. If you think it's a weakness, I don't let it hold me back. It used to be my belief system that because I was shy, because I was quiet, that I couldn't do what I do. But that all changed. And I know now what my limitations are. I will always be the first person that leaves a party. Some people might think that she's boring, she's this, she's whatever. It's not. It's because I'm great, one-on-one. I'm great with, a small group of people. But if I'm in a very big room or a lot of people or whatever, I find it intimidating, I think, because also my height, right? And this might sound bizarre, okay? But if you're 4'11" like me, it's very difficult to see, to see past a lot of people's, chests almost, So I think it's a combination of all those things. But yeah, I'm still introverted, I'm still shy, but I don't let it hold me back, and I'm okay with it. I actually like it.
I can't believe you're 4'11".
I'm 4'11". Yeah. 4'11". Yeah.
Because obviously we're doing this online, and I'm watching you, and I've got to know you a little bit. Mm-hmm. Not in a million years. I was expecting you to say to me, I'm really, really tall, and as a result, I can feel a bit awkward. Honestly.
That's so funny. No, the complete opposite. The complete opposite. Really, really short. And like that, I think it's incredible, right? So because I was short, I had this belief system, and I call it a belief system that, you're not going to amount to anything. Maybe that's where the insecurities came from, the shyness and everything like that, was because I was so short. And I always felt that you couldn't be successful. You couldn't be, nobody will take you seriously. You're not credible. You're not whatever, because you're too short. Because the story that we were told, particularly when I was younger, was you must be, a certain height, a certain shape, a certain look, a certain, and again, it still exists, but I think not to the same degree as what it did when I was younger. And I think also, I suppose through my experiences as well, it was like, that's such a load of BS, right? It is just a story that you're telling yourself that you can hide behind, that will hold you back, that won't allow you move forward, right? And sometimes we get comfortable in these stories, because if I allowed myself to stay there, then I keep myself small, and not in terms of being short. I'm talking in terms of everything else in my life. And so, yeah, 4'11". There you go.
Yeah, because in our conversations with our team members,
mm-hmm.
There's a few of them who are very vocal, not a bother, Sometimes you might like to turn the volume down,
Sure.
give other people a chance to get their tuppence worth in.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a few of our team members, and I'm always nudging them not to disappear into the background.
Sure.
You're very clever, you're very talented.
Yeah.
Please take the opportunity to say what's on your mind.
Yeah.
Don't wait for that invitation to speak all of the time. Try to give them that confidence. In particular, the younger ones, when they come in, I always say to them, everyone has a unique perspective. Mm-hmm. Even if you're a young, inexperienced person from God knows where, that experience that you have and that perspective is totally unique. Mm-hmm. And throw that opinion and lend your voice to that conversation in any way. So in your family, your mum and dad, what do they do?
So my father, well, he passed away when I was 17, but he used to be, when he was younger, he used to be a postman while he was studying for his exams. And then he went on then and he was the head of, do you remember the savings bonds, on post savings bonds?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what he did. And then my mom she's still with us, thankfully, and not a bother on her. She had her own like private catering company and also had like the canteen for the IADT in Dunleary, the College of Art and Design. And she's the most incredible cook.
So she was the entrepreneur in the family, was she?
She was the entrepreneur in this family, yeah. And when I think about her and how, again, the resilience from her, she came from, a very rural village and left home pretty much when she was about 13 or 14, like with many young women at that time. And she came to work for a family in Dublin and she was looking after their children and things like that. So she started out quite young and she loved it, and she made great connections and some friends. They did it together and she's still friends with those people to this day. She really, really enjoyed it. Great connections. And I think that's probably where my understanding of connecting within your company, within your business, with like that, with your colleagues, to understand, okay, so we have certain people that are the people that are, like you said, much quieter or more introverted. And I love, Greg, that you say, like, I encourage them to let me hear your thoughts, right? Because I think the people who are quiet, sometimes we think that they're the ones that don't want to speak. They have a lot to say, but it's allowing that connection. And I remember Mum would bring us we would help her. I remember when she did it, she was just incredible at making these cheesecakes, and we would have to crush the biscuits and to make the base of the cheesecake, and then she would bring us with her then when she was delivering to the little restaurants or whatever that she was, providing the cheesecakes for. And her relationships that she would build with these people, with her clients, let's say. She would never have called them clients then, though. And I think it's incredible that when I look back now on what she did and how she got through with having, us four as well at the same time, But yeah, it was really interesting. It was good times.
Was she a teacher to you in a way? Just observing her, interacting with clients, customers, whatever?
I think everybody is a teacher. I think, yes, to answer your question properly, I think, yes, 100%. But I think no matter who we have in our life, their influence on us will teach us something, right? And how to do things and how not to do things. And I think definitely with Mum, particularly when Dad died suddenly, like, when we were all so young, she again had to get through and continue to provide and to continue to do it. And it was the connections with her friends who were also partially business connections as well. She had the most amazing support network. And I think that piece in particular, that support network, I adopted that very, very quickly, because I just think it's so important that we have a support network, whether that's in our personal lives or our professional lives. I have two, and I think it's important to have that and to understand the value of that. And I think definitely watching her, and yes, she continues to be a great teacher.
Yeah, amazing. And the young Therese in school, petrified that someone will ask her to read something out loud.
Petrified.
When you would dream in the class, when the teacher, for whatever reason, would lose your attention, where would you go to in your head? What did you dream of?
Oh, my goodness. Do you know what I always wanted to, which the irony of it is, I always wanted to be an actress for the purpose of making people feel good. And so I would always see myself on a stage. However, never have the courage to do it. I did get involved in a little kind of a group years and years ago, and we were doing, was it the Pirates of Penzance? And I couldn't wait for the fourth year. We did transition year, and you did your school musical in transition year. And I couldn't wait for that because I really wanted a good part in that as well. So yeah, that's what I dreamed of. Yeah, being on stage, interesting. That's what I do now, pretty much.
Yeah, it's funny. I've listened to the Anthony Hopkins audiobook,
Yeah.
and again, a very, very quiet, introverted kid who didn't have too many pals, was happy in his room with his history books and his encyclopedias, but yet not a bother going on stage and everything else, which is pretty amazing.
Isn't it? Isn't it funny how I think for people listening, I think it's for whoever like potentially could be holding themselves back from a perceived insecurity or whatever it is. I think there's always, I was listening to something recently and it's around, your ability to do something is, are you capable, right? And if you're capable of doing something, what are the interferences? What's that internal dialogue that you're telling yourself that's stopping you from doing it, right? Because that's what holds any of us back, right? Like your example, my example, when somebody has those insecurities and they go and do it anyway, and that brings them joy. I think it's okay to be both. Do you know?
Yeah. And I won't go into it, but there's a very good book called The Art of Possibility.
Okay.
Which is a little bit about visualization in a way to help you or to train you to get rid of those negative conversations and try to visualize yourself being on that stage in front of a crowd, taking the applause and trying to make sure then that once you can visualize that, all the other bits and pieces will start to shift out of the way and you can end up making those things possible.
And I think when you visualize it, but also check in on your emotion with that visualization, right? Because sometimes when you visualize something, that could put the fear of God in you, right? You'd be terrified of something. I think so. The visualization plus the mindset or that internal dialogue.
Yeah.
In terms of the emotion.
I think that book was like a practical start with the success story in your head.
Sure.
And then reverse engineer everything from there to now as to, okay, these are the steps now that I need to take to open those doors. But you do definitely see the success or that you can envisage that particular moment.
Do you believe, Greg, then that if you can see it, you can have it, you can be it, do you believe that?
Oh, I do, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned choice earlier. You know, the choice you made on the beach. I think we bring that mindset to every single day. Like, what version of myself am I going to bring to today?
Right.
And some days you're quite conscious of it. I'm in a shitty mood. I'm no good to anyone, really. And you kind of think to yourself, well, I can continue like this for the rest of the day. My day isn't going to get any better, that's for sure. Or I can do my best to get into a different frame of mind where you're, okay, cop yourself on now, Greg. Bring a better version of who you are into the rest of today and just try and move on in that positive way as much as possible.
And I think it's just being critically aware that, you know what, I've checked in with myself and I know I'm like that. I'm in rubbish humor. I'm not doing anything for anybody else because we know that our energy carries, and you have a team of people working with you. And if you don't check in with yourself and check what your humor is like and what your energy is like, you're going to give that, you're going to pass it on to the rest of the team. They're either going to avoid you, they're going to, withhold information from you, they're going to whatever. And so I think that's critical now of people, whether you're a leader or whether you're not, is that I suppose it's emotional intelligence, isn't it? It is to be self-aware. Obviously others aware as well, but like that self-awareness, it starts with yourself, to be able to recognize, and it's okay to have a bad day.
Yeah, totally.
Right? It's okay. It really is okay because it's teaching you something, right?
Well, we're having this conversation in the middle of the summer. I know I used to work in the drinks industry, and one of my friends said there was a particular publican, and he would have been on the route from Shannon Airport to Kerry, and whatever outlet he had, that the American tourists en route would stop in there. And he was just saying that on a particular day they came in and they were looking for something awkward like Irish coffees or something. You'd have to get the cream.
Yeah.
And I think on this particular day, he just told them, sorry, I'm just the cleaner. The owner isn't here at the moment. And if you're behind the counter, it's difficult to hide. Whereas I think in professional services, maybe I won't make that call today, or I'll do a few, easier tasks and give myself a bit of a break.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just avoid people.
What did you want to do when you were thinking about career and everything else?
When I was younger?
Yeah.
So first of all, I wanted to work in a post office. I loved stamps. So that was my first one. Then for a long time, I wanted to work with children. And I did some childminding when I was a lot younger as well. It became a part-time job when I needed to, do get the pocket money and everything like that. We were always encouraged to go and make our own money at a young age. So and childminder. And then I definitely wanted to, I think the entrepreneurial side of me was always there. I think it was always there. I went into the beauty industry at one stage as well. Foundations of where I come from is supporting others, connecting with people, helping people through whatever challenges they're going. Even in the beauty industry, it was more the spa side. And so it was more the health and wellness. And it was about how they feel, how to help people feel better, how to mind themselves, that emotional self-regulation, all of those kind of side of things. I wasn't a therapist, but I worked in the industry and I loved it. I think it's a beautiful industry and I think it needs more advocates for it because of the benefits that can happen when people actually get the really great therapies. I remember, to give you an example actually as well, because some people believe this and some people won't believe it, but in addition to everything else that I was doing as I talked to you about the support, my mum's best friend, she's a nurse and also a reflexologist. And every week for 6 weeks after I came home from hospital, she would come up to the house and she would do reflexology. And I am a firm believer that is what happened and helped my eye open because she focused on the point in my foot that was relevant to my eye. And my eye opened after a couple of weeks. And when I was in with the ophthalmologist in Beaumont Hospital, she said to me that in 12 years of her doing what she did, she'd never seen that happen before. The damage is done. But interestingly enough, I was never told that. So the interference of being told you can't have this open ever again was not in my psyche. I believe that was a massive part of how that eye opened was through those alternative therapies as well. Yeah, so for me, that's how, I suppose you could probably call me a bit of a career comedian. And then I went into learning and development. And again, to help my first job after, when I had the brain hemorrhage, I had a beautiful flower and gift shop with my sister. We just loved it. It was just a beautiful, beautiful shop. And we used to support local artists because, a lot of local artists, they don't get to hang their products. They're a lot of paintings. We had beautiful ceramics. We had lovely knitted pieces, stoneware, all those kind of things. And so we basically hung their things for free, and because we wanted to be able to support that area. And so if something was sold, they would give us a small percentage or whatever. But if it wasn't, it's fine. We still enjoyed their work as well. So we got to be surrounded by this most beautiful work every day. And lost the business when I had the brain hemorrhage. I suppose my family didn't know whether I was going to recover or not, and they weren't in a position to keep going with the shop. So the decision was made to close it. So that was, I suppose, hard when I came out, because I went in with this beautiful shop and I came out to a shell. And it wasn't there. There was nothing there anymore. I suppose I didn't have to go through the process of clearing it out, And then I was obviously home recovering and everything like that. So the first job I got after I had to get a job, I had to earn money. And the first job I got was working with people who were on long-term unemployment and helping them get back into the world of work. And so it was really, really interesting, the different type of characters and the people that I worked with. And again, they taught me so much. I had people who had been addicts I had people who had been bankers and lost their jobs during the crash. I had like all sorts of people. And the one common theme was they all wanted to get back into the world of work. They just needed support with additional skill sets and help with their mindset and help with their belief systems to get them back into it. And it was so interesting to see that. And then from then, I really loved the learning and development side of things. And that's where I suppose this now journey came from, was supporting people with their development. Because if somebody says to me, I can't do something because they feel that they're not good enough or they're not, whatever, I find a way. Right? I help to shift people's paradigms, because the lens in which they're viewing a situation, it could be just a lens that has been handed down to them from past experiences or family members or peer groups or whatever. And sometimes when you shift that lens, when you have somebody else here, I'm going to give you another lens to look through. Have a look through that for the minute and see how does that feel, right? It's like, have you ever had your eyes tested?
Yeah, and I definitely need to do that again.
Right. Well, when you go to, now I haven't been there for a long time, but I'm assuming it's still the same. So when you go to the eye specialist and they have these they put these frames and they click the lenses through to see, is that better? Is that better? Is that better? Right. So you've got blurry, and then all of a sudden you can see. And that feeling of that clarity, I can see now. I think that's what it is. When we do the learning and development with others, it is going from, I can just about see, I can see it, it's a bit blurry, I'm not too sure, whatever. And then all of a sudden you see clearly. And I think that's the beauty of helping people through whatever it is, like whether soft skills, technical skills, emotional skills, whatever it is.
So if we work the timeline, you were saying it's 12 years anniversary.
12 years, yeah.
Yeah, so that puts us back to 2014, which is just post-crash.
Yes.
Obviously, the shop, you survived the Celtic crash from the sounds of it. Obviously, it wasn't an easy time. And and then all of that. So you lost more than your eyesight and everything else. A lot of other things just fell apart. Were you the sole provider at that stage and the family as well? Was your husband gone at that stage?
So I had the brain hemorrhage in July, as I said, and he was gone by the following late December, early January.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. 6 months later.
Yeah. So a lot of things unraveled in your life. Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people you were seeing and coaching, obviously a lot of their livelihoods and everything else had collapsed during that time. And when it comes to a lens, no better person to think, no, I need to get you talking positive around here and looking at things in a different way.
And you know what, Greg, it's not even just to be positive, because there's the positivity, looking at something in a positive lens, or a toxic positivity. I think it's so important. So when we look at it with positivity, but also with reality as well. So what is our reality right now? What have we got in front of us? What's our potential? What are our options? And then work with there. I think it has to have positivity, but to be mindful that watch the level of positivity and whether if it's real or not.
A little bit, that's back to your stone by stone analogy again, isn't it? Just go for the next step. It's funny, when the wheels fell off the economy at that time, we were running courses for local enterprise office clients. Right. People who I'd say for one reason or another felt the only way forward was to start their own business. Right. And they were all in person. And you'd have a group of 8-10 people all trying to start their own business. And they were like support groups. Yeah. We do our thing, marketing and PR tricks and all that kind of stuff, your social media. Yeah. But come the coffee break, they'd all get together. You'd be dragging them back to the part 2 of the session in the evening. Yeah. Because they were getting such a buzz. And to this day, some of our very, very close pals were on those local enterprise sessions at that time. Yeah. And so many of them are still connected. Because at times like that, you do need hope. When people have kind of given up on things, And it was fairly grim at that time.
Yeah.
And the outlook was bad, and there was recession and depression and austerity and the whole lot.
Yeah.
At least do this course, take this next step, do whatever. You're not going to figure out everything straight away, but take one positive step forward. I think it's just so important.
I think without hope, there's not an awful lot left. Hope and faith. I think that you have faith as well. We hope for something better, but we have to, and faith that it will occur.
You use peculiar language when I'm talking to you. You can tell me shut up whenever you want.
Okay.
And you mentioned your son's father.
Yeah.
Took his own life.
Yeah.
Was that not your husband?
No.
Okay.
No. So
is that particular language you're choosing? Sorry.
Well, interesting. Yes, I know what you mean. So it is, because I have two other children.
Yeah.
So when I say my son's father, I don't mean my children's father.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had Daniel when I was really young, and then went on then to marry somebody else, and we had two children together.
I've gotcha now.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
Okay.
pickup. Yeah. So yeah, interesting. Yeah. So I would refer to my son's father because he wasn't all three children's father.
Okay. And was that a big relationship, you and him?
Me and Barry was his name. Yes. And a very special relationship because we were, like I say, we were very young. I was 19 and he was 21. 26 when he died, and but we were the best friends. I suppose we were probably very mature as well for our age. When I look at younger people now, and maybe we just had to mature very quickly, and we didn't have a choice. But yeah, so we had a very special relationship, and I still continue to have a really great and incredible relationship with Barry's mom and his sister and his extended family as well. His father has passed away now a couple of years ago. And we're so fortunate. We have what you would call a modern family, and I'm so grateful for that we continue to have her in our lives as well. And I think that's really important for all three kids. My three are extremely close, and a number of years ago, for example, I was out to lunch with the three of them, and Daniel's a chef, and he's a very good chef, and he would be very well known and respected in his area. And he wanted to do something about, he actually started raising money for mental health charities from the age of 16. His first time was he did a pub quiz for Pieta House at 16 years old. He then went on to become, like I say, a chef, and he got involved with an organisation, a charity called the 3Ts, which is Turn the Tide of Suicide. And he started doing pop-up dining events to raise money for the 3Ts. Everybody knows Pieta House, and they are an incredible organisation, and they offer a lot of therapies and things like that for people who are struggling. But with the 3Ts, they do the research behind all of that. So the research behind the training and things like that. So Daniel wanted to help them and raise money for them for that research. So he started these dining events called Food for Thought. And what's happened and evolved from the food, we've done 17 of them. The last one we did was a couple of weeks ago, but actually we changed the charity, and I'll tell you about that in a second. And so he's raised now up to about €70,000 at this stage for the 3Ts doing these dining events. But my point being is that the four of us sat down together. He wanted to do something, and the three kids decided together what that would be, the name of the organisation, the logo for it, and all three of them work in it. So obviously Daniel organises it and sets it up and runs it. And both Robin and Lucy then they'll do, waitressing or whatever they can get involved in. And they do it together as a family, right? And even though Barry wasn't obviously their dad, they still feel very strongly about it. And I think that's what's been important for our family, So he's done 17 events. Like I say, the last one we did was a couple of weeks ago, Greg, and it was for, I don't know if you've ever heard of a gentleman called Marcus O'Leary, again in the food industry as well. But his father passed away recently and was supported in his final days by the hospice in Harold's Cross. So Marcus has a big social following as well, and decided he wanted to do something to help and to support and raise funds for the hospice. And so Daniel went to him and he said, look, would you like, we hadn't done a food for thought event for a while, and he said, would you like to do a dining event, which he was delighted to. And what happens is in these events, pretty much, some of the best chefs in Ireland come and they work this event. So we might have 5 or 6 courses, and there'll be one chef doing each course. And so the premise is that everybody sits down together and gets fed at the same time as you would when you're home as a family. Because the way I raised my children were, we sat down, we never missed dinner, right? Together, or as much as possible. And everybody's busy and they have all football trainings and all sorts of things going on or whatever. And always sitting around the table would have been the question, what was the worst part of your day? And what was the best part of your day? And each one of them had an opportunity to answer 2 questions. And so Daniel said, I love that if we can sit down and talk about mental health, if we can sit down together and talk about, because it's still, even the word suicide, some people find it difficult to say the word. There's still a lot of, what would you call it? Stigma around suicide, and we need to change that. And that was where it all came from. And that was where the conversation with the 3 of them came from as well, when we came up with the idea. Anyway, so we did an event for the hospice in Harold Cross a couple of weeks ago on behalf of Marcus O'Leary. And they're just beautiful events. And these amazing chefs from around the country come and they dedicate their time. I'm talking about Michelin star chefs. I'm talking about people. And interestingly enough, and I watched them and I said it to Daniel a couple of weeks ago, I said, it's incredible how when they go into that kitchen, none of them are the leader. They all have to work together because it's not their kitchen. Because a restaurant will offer the restaurant up, right? And the restaurant owner will say, yes, you can use our restaurant for the event. And then all the chefs come to that restaurant. So they don't know the kitchen. They don't know the lay of the land. They don't know anything. And they have to work together. And it's so interesting because when it's for the common cause, if it's for a purpose, if it's for the sense of belonging to each other as a team, it's incredible what people will do. There's no ego in that room. Right? And they produce the most incredible food. It is the most beautiful environment where you just feel love. That's all you feel in that room. Right? There's no choice of, whether you're picky or not. Right? There's no choices. This is the meal, right? As if you were in, a lot of families now will have lots of multiple meals, I think, at the dinner. But anyway, so it's incredible. So we've achieved a lot, I think, together.
Has he done this to honour his father or to learn about darkness and where it can lead to? Is he figuring it out? Is he trying to help others? Deep down, Therese, why is he doing this?
I think the main reason, I think a little bit of everything that you've just said there, but the main reason is to hopefully help another family not, and I know it's a real cliche, but to help another family. If we can help any family not go through that, and to recognize, and the thing about the 3 T's, because so I now am fortunate because I own my own business. I now can carve out some time. I teach now safe talk, suicide alertness for everyone, and so I go into organizations. It's a free service. Basically, you get in touch with Lisa in the 3 T's. And I go into the organization and I deliver, it's a half-day training session, and you get certified in being aware of and what to do if you suspect that somebody might be having suicidal thoughts. And so really the purpose was to try and help educate people. And even if we helped one family, even if one person was saved as a direct result of doing that, was it to honour his father? Potentially, yes, but it wasn't solely for that. He has beautiful memories of him, but at the same time, the focus is never really on that alone, if that makes sense. So it's more on helping others. Yeah, actually, it is. The more focus is on helping others to help people not go through that, because it's horrendous. And anybody who's listening to this knows the difference between, it might be an uncomfortable statement for me to make, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but it's a different type of death to experience, because there's always questions, right? And there's always that uncertainty behind it. And yeah, it's a tough one.
Was it difficult for you?
It remains to be difficult. It still is difficult. It'll never be. It was horrendous at the time. I suppose the scary part was, like I say, I was so young. I'd never known anybody to die by suicide. I'd never known anybody who had somebody die by suicide. It was foreign to me. I had no experience of it whatsoever. And suppose my focus was on him. And it wasn't really on Daniel as a 5-year-old. I was just really afraid of the impact that it would have on him by the time he was 14, those hormonal years or whatever. So I did get support. I got him into the Lucina Clinic, who really helped us and guided us through that time. I don't think I'll ever get over it. Do you get over it, grief? I heard a great... I don't even know where I heard this, but I heard a great analogy. Would you call this an analogy? But what grief is like, I suppose, here's me talking about stones again, but it's like a stone in your pocket, right? And when it's first in your pocket, you can feel the coldness of the stone against your skin through the fabric. You can feel the rigidness, the sharp edges of the stone, and you can feel it pressing against you. And then you start to get used to it, the stone being in your pocket. It's there, right? But you don't feel it as much anymore. And then some days, then you'll lean off the stone, you'll press against it, and then it comes up again. The pain comes up, the coldness comes up, all of that. And I think for me, that was a perfect way of describing grief, because it is something that it is, when I think about Barry, the person he was and the talent that he had, and everybody said he was the last person you would, life and soul of the party, Greg. Like he was an introvert but an extrovert as well at the same time. I think that's called an ambivert, I think, or something like that, is it?
I've no idea.
I think there's a word. I think there is. And he would have been that kind of person. He was a graphic designer, really, really, really talented. And so it was a real shocker for everybody. And so it shows you. And I think that's what, when somebody shows up to me and has the mask, there's patterns and behaviors that I am now super aware of behind that I can see now that I wouldn't have seen when I was younger. And I think I've learned that it's almost like you're a white witch. It's like, how do you know? It's because I'm watching, I'm observing patterns, I'm observing your behaviors, even how you put things on your table, tells me something because I'm astutely aware now. And maybe that's to my detriment because I'm constantly eyes wide open, but I think it's helped as well in a lot of ways. I don't think you can ever get over it. I think it's just you. It's almost like you scratch your head and you go, oh, I can't believe that actually happened. Why did it happen? Like, it didn't need to happen. It was just, he had so much, going for him, and he adored his son. Like, he absolutely adored him, And so people think, oh, if you loved me, why did you do that? It's nothing to do with that. Right? It's not. It is something completely different. And I think it's important to remember and recognize that as well.
Did he adore you?
Of course he did.
So you're still immersed in that topic. You're giving these talks on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. At some point, do you think, I need to leave this topic behind?
Right now, I don't see that happening. But I know life, and I know that potentially it could get to the stage. I don't do too many because conversations will always come up. And even though I'm like, what are we? He died in 1998. So what was that? 20? How many years is that now? 24 years? 20? I don't count anymore.
28.
Yeah, 28. So it's still, when I talk about it, you probably sense the change in my energy and everything like that. When I talk about it, I still go to, the emotion is still there. It's still in my gut, And so when I deliver the Safe Talk training, I pull from it. I don't let it impact me too much during the training, but I have to give myself almost recovery time from it, because It's a difficult subject and it's hard because the conversations that come up in that during those pieces of training. So do I ever think I'll give it up? I don't think I think I probably will always continue in some capacity, some shape or form. I think it's probably something I don't know if I could stop, because you just never know who the person you're going to impact. You don't know how it's going to help somebody.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So talk to me about Stone by Stone Leadership, your business and what you do.
Mm-hmm. So the series of events that happened and unfolded throughout, particularly, when I went back into the world of work and I started working with some incredible companies, and I was working with amazing leaders and working with not so amazing leaders as well, and like I said earlier on, we learn from everybody, right? The influence everybody has on us. There's something to learn from it, or something to recognize or value. And I think I got to the stage where I was confident enough to go back into the entrepreneur stage, because I wanted to be able to do the safe talk training as well. That was important to me. And working, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, wasn't going to allow me to be able to do that. So I wanted different time schedules. I wanted to be able to have time to do the things that I really wanted, the impact that I wanted to make. And also that supporting of people and leadership, there is a gap. What I was recognizing was a lot of leaders are promoted into management leadership positions because of their technical skills and not to help them with the people skills. And they weren't being helped with the people skills. And so there was a huge gap there. And I was recognizing it more and more, not just within the organization that I've been working in, but with having conversations with other leaders, other HR professionals. And I just thought, I want to go back into the learning and development space. And this is what I want to do. Because when I looked at, say, for example, the principles that I used in my recovery, particularly from the brain hemorrhage, are the exact same principles we use for our leadership programs. And they are through discipline as nourishment. So consistency, through connection, through empathy. There's a lot of leaders who will look at that and think empathy is a weakness. We're not here to be liked. We're here to be whatever. And they would be the type of companies that I won't work with, right? Because companies that we work with now, I have a lovely team, small but growing. And when we connect with the companies, it's really around the capability with regards to the people that they're working with and supporting them every step of the way. Because I think now in the world of AI as well, so many people are behind screens. Like you and I are behind a screen. Like years ago, this would never happen. We would have had to have met in probably, a location that was sort of, a middling location or something like that. Or maybe we wouldn't have done it at all. Maybe we would have done it over the phone. Who knows? But the connectivity we can connect with people, but it is a genuine connection. And we lose that. And we now know that with younger people coming through as well, that their ability to connect and to even have a conversation, they prefer to text or they prefer to or email. And then the old school way of connection has been lost. And I think it's really important to bring that back. I know people are scared about AI and I'm not educated enough on it to be able to talk about it. But what I do know is that there will always be the requirement for humans, the human connection, the ability to have a relationship, to have a conversation that is there. People avoid having a difficult conversation because they don't want to get uncomfortable. Right, because we're now in the era of like instant gratification, we can get everything at our fingertips, et cetera, et cetera. And then when we get uncomfortable, when we don't get what we want, we don't know how to deal with that. We don't know how to handle it. And so empathy and connection, when you have both of those, you can have those difficult conversations. And difficult conversation doesn't have to be conflict. It can be, let's have this conversation about whatever it is, because once it's had, that's where the breakthrough happens. Okay? People need to be taught how to do it. there's a way to do it. There's a way to emotionally regulate yourself. Like you say, when you're in that bad mood and, you're frustrated or whatever, and you're not going to have a difficult conversation. Don't have a difficult conversation when you're feeling like that. That not necessarily conducive to a good outcome, because it's going to be emotionally charged, right? Rather than solution focused. And I think when you enter into these things with the solution focus rather than being completely emotionally charged, I think that's critically important. So there was a lot of gaps. And I'll give you an example. I had this conversation with somebody recently, and they're a new manager. They've just been recently promoted being a new manager. And they're having difficulties with a couple of characters within their organization. And the difficulty is, when I asked a few different questions, what I realized then, it wasn't the actual other person that was the problem. It was the individual not being able to actually step into the role of being a manager. So she was still playing the co-worker role. And so she wasn't approaching the situations in a way that somebody in a management position, and I'm not talking about, being controlling or micromanaging or anything like that. I'm talking about her being in control of her reactions to other people, and her mindset needed to be shifted. Her paradigm needs to be shifted again. I find it really interesting that people really need support with that. And it's not a weakness when you don't know, you don't know. But I think as business owners, as leaders, it is crucially important that we provide those opportunities for our employees. We recognize what needs to happen for them. And so when we're promoting somebody that is going to have a team reporting to them, I think it's crucial that we also provide them with training on how to manage people and how to work with people. I don't even like the word manage, but how to get the best out of their team, so that their team feel like they belong to whatever the business is, so the purpose, the cause of the business. And it's that sense of belonging, I think, is crucial. And it's okay to have that.
You mentioned the word manager. So are you helping managers to be more effective, or are you teaching leadership training? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we do both. So we actually have three main structures within the business. So we look at the business as a whole. We look at the senior leadership team. We look at the values, the behaviors, and what the company is doing. And then we look at then the mid-managers. And I think the mid-managers, there's a gap there for mid-managers for support. So the senior leaders tend to get coached, and then the mid-managers tend to get sort of masterclasses, a series of masterclasses on various different topics to help them, to support them. But it's not just, I don't go in and say, deliver a masterclass on how to have a difficult conversation. We do a series of them. They make sense. They are designed in a way that the classes evolve, but also there is the extra piece of work that when you leave that class, that session, that there is a certain amount of work that needs to be done. So it's not enough for me to go in and deliver a bit of information. I need you to do the work on it now. And then you get reflected on the metric put in place. Because I think that's the key piece that a lot of people miss. They go in and say, well, I've trained them. But have you done the follow-up? Have you done, assessed their learning? And again, it's so crucially important that to recognize that different people learn differently. And so when I go into any session, I've already got a little bit of an understanding of who the people are that are going to be in the room with me, simply because I need to understand how they work. So I'll meet people where they're at, not where I'm at. So I could be in any sort of industry. So I could be in construction, I could be in finance, I could be in hospitality, now I have a lot of experience in hospitality, finance. Maths is not my forte, right? That's not my area. However, what the topic of what their business is doesn't matter to me. It is more about the people, about their ability to connect with others, to lead others, to get the best out of somebody else. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, it's all the same, right? You can have variations of how people, like typically, the type of people. So say, for example, if I went into a spa, right, the therapist will be they have a type of character, the type of personality, versus if I was to say go into financial company, whereas those people think logically, they think with numbers, they think with, right? So you needed to connect with how they're going to learn and understand how other people learn. You can figure that out fairly quickly as well. so that give them the best value, and for us then to see the difference. And the feedback then we'll get from the individuals themselves. Some of them will obviously keep in touch with us as well and give us their own feedback from what they got from it, but also the organizations as a whole. We don't just focus on the individual outcomes, but we're focusing on the holistic outcome of the organization. And we can see, it takes time to see the metrics, particularly the financial metrics of that, but you can see it, because we have a way of measuring it.
In your time doing this work, has the landscape changed a little bit, would you say?
You know what? I'm starting to see change now. And the change I'm seeing, interestingly enough, and I think it's thanks to AI, is that people are realizing that human connection is far more valuable and far more and extremely important.
Yeah, so right? It's actually teaching us the opposite.
I think it's teaching us the opposite. I genuinely believe that in the next couple of years, what we're going to be looking for, and what we're going to reckon, the credible businesses are the businesses that support their teams, that provide the opportunity for people to learn and grow, that don't lead with ego, right? That lead with heart. And I'm going to sound very fluffy to some people, but I promise you mark my words, if you're not seeing it already, you will see it. And sometimes it's the most unassuming businesses that you see. My goodness, this is why they're so successful, because you see them caring about the people. They care about the people. I believe it's as simple as that. It goes a long way.
Typically, who calls you and what problem do they want you to solve?
Okay. Typically, it'll be the HR person, if not the owner, the business owner, one or the other. Sometimes it can be actually I've got a couple of operations managers as well that might get in touch as well. So I suppose a lot of times I'm fortunate enough that I don't have to go through various steps. So a lot of times it will be the decision maker in the end of the day that's getting in touch. I do outreach. We have a salesperson as well, but we also get a lot of our businesses from repeat business and word of mouth. And what are their common issues? The common issues are things like leaders being able to support their team, time management, priority management, having those difficult conversations, absence management, being able to forecast, being able to look at your percentages in terms of your payroll, to be able to understand and know what training opportunities that the departments or the individuals might need. What we're seeing a lot of is things like imposter syndrome. We're hearing a lot of things like procrastination, and they're all fear-based. People have started to shy away from being accountable. Accountability was probably the big word that's been used for the last 2 years, I think. And that accountability piece is that a lot of people are shying away from holding themselves accountable and being accountable for their actions and their behaviours. We tend to start with the first of our masterclass series is personal effectiveness, and is really about you as a person, how you show up, the attitude, and how you show up for anything is how you show up pretty much for everything. And so we help the leaders to identify where the culture gaps are as well. And so we might look and review their teams as a whole, and very quickly, using a certain process that we use, we can identify who the bottom. Have you ever heard of the vitality curve?
No.
It's a great metric. So it's basically like this curve, and on one end of the curve is 10%. The middle is your 70%, and the other side is your 20%. And so your 20% are your top employees. They're sleeping, and breathing the business. They're fantastic workers. They're just driving it. They're the driving force. They love what they do. They have a great attitude, etc., etc. It's a 70% there. We've got people they're coming into work. They're showing up. They're doing the job. They're doing okay. You can almost set your clock by them. They'll come in at 9 o'clock and they'll be gone at 5 o'clock on the dot, type of thing, right? And then we have your 10%, and they would be the ones that you're constantly chasing. They're not showing up on time. They're underproductive. They're not performing well. And then I split that 10% in two. And so because of the difference between people who are struggling and they care versus somebody who's struggling and they don't care. So we look at that, we analyze the data on that side of things. And so which is it? And then we help people recognize. Now this is the bigger piece of work that we would do and support, and in terms of change management and things like that. And when we're trying to support people through changing the culture within their organization, there would be a lot of work in that. And it's a really simple way of explaining it. There's a lot more to it, obviously, but it's a really simple way of explaining it. And looking at, where your team, whether that's 5 people in your team or 500 people in your team. I guess it depends on the organization, but there is that theme. There is that theme of culture, productivity, absence management, and how to deal with it. And then we've got the other little pieces, things like, the HR pieces. And even though they might have a HR department, it is helping the managers understand what's legal, right? And what the processes are in terms of performance management, etc.
Okay. That ratio 70, 20 and 10.
Yeah.
Is that a typical ratio that you're finding?
Very typical.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned culture, and we all talk about that as if it's this thing that's just there. But of course it's not a thing. It's the collective, isn't it? It's how we all live and breathe in this organization.
Yeah.
It's that collection of choices that we all make as we go about our jobs and stuff. Mm-hmm. In a situation where you're brought in to, I don't know, sort out the managers.
Sure. Yeah.
And you quickly identify, well, there's a cultural issue because of possibly some of the things that's happening above them. What do you do in that scenario where, this problem is bigger than the few characters you've asked us to work with?
Yeah. You'll hear a lot, obviously, saying it comes from the top. It's, it's all that kind of thing. And culture does, right? Potentially, but not always. And I think sometimes it can be that there are certain people in certain positions that feel that they hide behind their inability. They don't recognize their fault, their accountability in something. And so it's easier to hide behind that and put fault on somebody else than accept their part. Now, that's not always the case, but that can potentially be a huge part of it. That in itself will come from the lack of training, because there's an insecurity in that individual because they haven't actually been trained properly or supported in whatever the transition of their role has been. I'll give you an example. This morning, I had an early morning meeting and I went into Coffee Angel. I don't know if you know the brand. Anyway, got myself a coffee. I had a few minutes before I had this meeting, and I sat outside. It was beautiful out, and there was 2 gentlemen to the side of me, and they were chatting away. And one guy was basically, is it okay to use this word? He was basically bitching.
Please do.
He was basically bitching about a colleague, and I found it really interesting because the more he was saying, the other person went quieter and quieter. And I think the other person was getting uncomfortable. I found it interesting because there was a lot of blame happening for this other colleague. Now, obviously, I don't know the whole story, right? But from what I could hear, my perception was, I wanted to turn around and say, well, what have you done about it? You're focusing on the problem, not on the solution. Because that's what people tend to do, right? You go into a business and say, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. This person is acting this way, this person is acting, in a negative way, whatever. Okay, right? Okay, we recognize that. Now what do we do about it? Where's the solution to it? And I think that culture of focusing on the problem is where the negative culture is coming from. Because when we're all solution focused, not to say that we have to recognize that, well, we have to have a conversation about the problem, what the issue is. Absolutely, because, if you start to like that toxic positivity, oh, everything's okay, we're all wonderful, we're all happy, that's not true. That's not good either, right?
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
So I think that being very real about what's actually happening and really recognizing the accountability factor, the blame factor, and is there support there for those solutions? If we do come up with the solutions, then how committed is the senior leadership team? Because a lot of times I go in and potentially it can happen, and it has happened a couple of times, and this is where I won't necessarily work with the organization because I can't, because I know that the senior leadership team don't believe in the supports. They just want outcomes, but they're not prepared to do the stone by stone. They're not prepared for that. They want the instant gratification, and sometimes that just doesn't happen. It doesn't work, right? Yeah. Growth happens over time. Any success story is never an overnight success. We know this. And so it is I'm going to say short-sightedness of some leaders that may potentially look at it and go, and it's not out of bad intent. It's just about out of their awareness too. And so the great ones that you get to work with are the ones that says, I know that I'm part of the problem. Let's have a conversation. What can we do? And then they help, and they are committed to the change and to the support.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm sure it's very easy when you do your annual review and you identify that there's a key issue here with morale or whatever. So the solution is, let's hit Mr. Google, let's talk to Therese and her team, let's bring them in, let's write a check. And that's a tick of the box, but it doesn't quite necessarily do the hard stuff.
It doesn't. But when it's done right, Greg, like the transformation and the change, as you see, and like transformation is not going in and sugarcoating everything. Transformation is breaking everything down to the foundation and maybe rebuilding, like recreating the foundation and building it back up from there. That's transformation. Right. But when you see that happen, it's incredible. And that's where I get my absolute total fulfillment from, is watching that happen. And I have faith and I have trust that anybody, given the correct tools to do their job, the correct environment, and to be provided with psychological safety to do well, that is half the battle. And it is just incredible what people will do, share, and how that they will commit to grow and develop and to work on a business when they're provided with those. The environment is so important.
I'm getting a small hint, Therese, that you enjoy what you do.
Is it obvious? I do.
Is this the truth?
It is the truth. I do. I genuinely, I am, I am so fortunate that I wake up in the morning and I don't dread the day. I don't dread work. I don't dread anything. I wake up in the morning going, I genuinely think, how can I do well today? Who am I going to impact? Who are the people I'm going to be meeting? And how do I need to show up for them and for me? And when I do that, when I work on that, I just enjoy it. I just love it. Do I have bad days? Of course I do. Do I want to bang my own head off the wall sometimes? Absolutely I do. Right? We all have that. I won't. No, I'm thoroughly enjoying this. So, but no, of course, and we all have those. But I still enjoy getting up in the morning. I still enjoy doing it. I still enjoy going to work. I have the combination where I could be online or I could be on site. So I have great variety. And I think I thrive on that. I know my limits. I know what it is that I like to do. And as long as I'm doing something that's impactful, that is supporting others, I'm happy doing it,
I know you. I know you are. How can people get in touch with you?
They can get in touch. My email address is info@stonebystoneleadership.com, or we have a website, which is stonebystoneleadership.com.
Cool. What's happiness to you?
What's happiness to me? I think I can, first of all, safely say that I am happy. My happiness comes from knowing, first and foremost, that my children are safe and they're doing okay. They all have their own thing going on, but they're doing okay. That makes me extremely happy. I think surrounding myself with really great people and people who have an impact in this world, I think it's important to me. I shy away from the other kind of people. Happiness is, I'm happy right now having these conversations with you, meeting like-minded people. I think happiness is having food to put on the table, to be able to be very grateful for everything that I have. And I don't regret a thing. I don't look back and would I change anything? Obviously, one or two things I might change. But even if you ask me, would you change the brain hemorrhage? I wouldn't, because I needed that. The rug was pulled from under me for a reason, and I'm okay with it. Obviously, Barry's death is something different, but yeah. So happiness is being here and showing up for myself and for others.
And in terms of winning, what makes you genuinely celebrate? What's worthy of a celebration?
Oh. My son got engaged. His wedding is in September. What's worthy of celebration? I think I'm worthy of a celebration. You see, and it's funny, I don't think about business. I don't think of working. I think of family. I think of friends. I think, my best friend getting, she had cancer and she got the all clear, that's celebration to me. It's really around family and friends, isn't it? What else? And your health, being okay and being able to, get up every day and be grateful for that day.
So I have one last question for you.
Okay.
And I'm going to use your stone analogy.
Okay.
What's the most valuable stone that was handed to you and who gave it to you?
Oh, God. Okay, I'm trying to think now. What was the most valuable stone and who gave it to me? I remember a leader of mine years ago. And I think, apart from my mum and the influence of her, I remember this woman, and she was younger than me. A lot of young people have this sort of thing that they're not good enough to be a leader when they're young. But this woman, she was much younger than me, but she was my boss, and she was absolutely incredible. And what made her incredible was, Greg, that if you went into her office and you were asking her a question, you wanted to have something, she would stop what she was doing. She would swivel her chair and look straight at you. She would stop typing. She wouldn't answer the phone while you were there. You were her soul. She gave you all her attention in that moment. And I watched how that made everybody feel. And if you talk about culture, she had this most incredible culture. Everybody worked for her, worked with her, and, went above and beyond, because she made everybody else feel that they were worthwhile, that they were worthy, and that they mattered. And I thought, isn't it incredible to be able to do? Now, she had a way of, she didn't have the time. If she couldn't give that time, she used to do this. If my door is closed, I'm doing deep work, I can't be interrupted or whatever, right? So she taught people how to treat her. And I think that we all should do that, right? Teach people how, we all do it anyway. We teach people how to treat us. So I think the most value in that is to make sure that every time you're with somebody, you give that person your full attention. Because getting distracted, working on, an email while what is that message that you're giving them? That they're not important, they're not valuable, and they don't deserve your attention. And I think that was probably something that has stuck with me. And I use her story quite a lot. And I don't think she knows. Yeah, but I must tell her.
Will we give her a shout out?
Oh, gosh. Will we?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. Her name is Lauren Maloney, and she owns a company called the Spa Collaborative. So she's a global sensation in terms of her organization and what she's gone through. She's a real success story, and I'm not surprised. I haven't spoken to her in years, but there you go.
Yeah, well, that's a lovely, lovely, lovely win for her, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it's not about the business success or anything else. It's what she left with you, and what a brilliant thing to say about someone.
Yeah.
Therese, thank you so much. What an amazing woman.
Thank you, Greg.
we have to meet. I'm looking forward to that already.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a weird thing when it comes to size and stuff. Not a chance on this earth are you 4'11". Not a chance. You're now like 6 foot plus, big time. and then, of course, the reverse is that. Why do you think small is kind of... Yeah, why is small bad?
Sure, right.
I'm trying to figure that out myself. Like, oh no, she's an incredible woman. She has to be tall. That's terrible, isn't it?
Well, if you think about, right, like it's not as much the same anymore, but it's still a certain amount of it in it. But if you look at the fashion industry, I think we were taught from being a supermodel, you had to be, and if you think about the word supermodel, right, and you had to be a certain height. So if you were if you went into the guards, you had to be a certain height. Maybe that's where it came from. The guards now, I don't think they have that anymore. I don't know, actually, maybe they do. But maybe it comes from that. I definitely think it's an old story. It's an old dialogue that had just stayed with me anyway.
Yeah. Well, you're a supermodel.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Greg.
Therese, thank you so much. Take it easy.
Greg, it's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, brilliant. Take it easy. Thank you for listening to the Win Happy podcast, which has been brought to you by Fusion Communications. If you'd like to get in touch, feel free to send me an email at greg@fusion.ie. So until next time, take it easy.